DW Africa Link.
Human trafficking in Cameroon has become an urgent crisis, forcing thousands into forced labor and exploitation. From the streets of Douala to remote villages, traffickers lure victims with false promises of jobs and a better life. Corruption and poverty fuel this crisis, making escape nearly impossible. How did human trafficking become so lucrative in Cameroon, and what can be done to stop it? Let's uncover the reality behind this growing industry. Stay tuned. My name is Josie Mahachi. Welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter from Africa.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
Stakeholders in Cameroon's fight against human trafficking are alarmed by its scale following the recent rescue of 100 children from traffickers in the Western region. At a workshop by the Kumbo Diocese Justice and the Peace Commission, supported by lawyers, judges, journalists, and civil society, highlighted the severe abuse victims face and barriers to justice, fear, legal ignorance, and high costs. Testimonies from survivors exposed the grim reality, reinforcing the need for stronger collaboration. Now, let's explore this $150 billion industry with Lukong Isido Jonyung, the Diocesan Justice and Peace Commission Deputy Coordinator, and DW's Kilian Angala. But I'll start with you, our correspondent on the ground, Kilian. If you can just explain to us exactly what's going on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Josie. The story of human trafficking is a rising concern in Cameroon, actually, because just last week there was this workshop in Yaoundé organized to look for ways by which human trafficking can be dealt with, and it's coming at a time just when about 100 children were freed from the hands of traffickers in Cameroon's western region. And part of the problem, especially in the English-speaking parts of Cameroon, is that with the ongoing conflict there, the situation has worsened. It is difficult to actually put figures behind this human trafficking trend, but by every stretch of the imagination, it is a rising phenomenon in Cameroon as across Africa, because when you look at some of the statistics, nearly 40 million people, or about 40 million people, trafficked worldwide in 2017, and 25% of the global trafficking crimes actually take place in Africa. So this is a rising concern, and the church and other partners, including NGOs, the civil society, journalists, lawyers, magistrates, they came together in Yaoundé to try to figure out how best to deal with this problem.
Right. And Lukong Isido, you are in charge of the trafficking in persons cases in the diocese. That's the Kumbo Diocese. How big a problem is trafficking in persons in the Diocese of Kumbo and Cameroon in general?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Yes, the situation of human trafficking is a big concern in the Diocese of Kumbo and Cameroon in general, because actually this issue of human trafficking came to light in 2005 when the U.S. Embassy, when they had a meeting in Kribi, and through their statistics, they were able to reveal that there's human trafficking going on in Cameroon. And since then, the Justice and Peace Commission of the Diocese of Kumbo has taken on board the fight. And from our experience and from the statistics we are having, the issue is always increasing in the diocese and Cameroon in general. There are many reasons for this. Many of the victims are from poor backgrounds, from remote areas, and these traffickers who come from big towns around, they come and lure them into trafficking networks. So it is actually a big problem that is increasing, and since traffickers are constantly changing their strategies, many victims, they continue to fall prey to their lures. So the issue of human trafficking is a big concern for the Diocese of Kumbo, and the ongoing crisis in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon has come to increase the rate of human trafficking. And the reason is simply because With the current crisis, many people have been displaced from their homes. Family, which is the basic unit of the society, has been shattered, and you find children or you find parents who don't even know what to do with their children, such that children are loose, children are not going to school. And if we follow the UNICEF statistics, they are indicating that more than 700,000 children are out of school. And if 700 children are out of school, it means that they are more and more being exposed to the lures of traffickers. So actually, the issue of human trafficking is a big concern in the diocese of Kumbu and Cameroon in general.
Right, right. But as someone who is in charge of trafficking in persons cases, especially in your diocese, Lukong, have you really done an investigation to try and find out who exactly is behind the syndicate and what is causing these numbers to rise? Is someone making money from this? And just if you can give us an overview of what you've found out as a diocese as you're looking into this issue.
Yeah, it is very interesting to note that some of these traffickers, they are family members. They are always close relations. And from our experience, we would discover that it is actually a well-organized network. And in the process of trying to prosecute some of the traffickers, we came to realize that you have people of high profile maybe along the line, and to break through the network is always a problem. It's a chain of people that are well coordinated, and they come in the guise of uncles, aunties, close family relations, those who actually know the situation of the family, and then the families, they fall prey. And in the course of our work, we also discovered that since we, at the level of protection, victim protection, the Cameroonian law is still very lacking in that. In the course of trying to prosecute the perpetrators, it is difficult. And at times, the victims are being threatened. And then at one point, they abandon the legal process. So because of they feel that they are not safe. So actually, the traffickers, they are not people that are not known to the community. They come in line. Sometimes we have even elites who come around because they want cheap labor. They pass through the remote areas in our communities and get these young people and get them to towns where they are being exploited in many forms.
Right. And Kumbo is also said to be, Kumbo Diocese is also said to be the epicenter of the ongoing separatist struggle in Cameroon, Lukong. How has that war then impacted trafficking in humans as well?
It has actually impacted greatly the issue of human trafficking in the sense that, like I mentioned before, many homes have been destroyed in the course of the ongoing crisis, and many families have been separated. We did a survey, and it's indicating that there are about 1,000 people that are displaced from Kumbu, and they find themselves in neighboring towns like Bamenda, Bafoussam, Douala, Yaoundé. We made a survey, and we discovered that many of these IDPs who are out there, they have nothing doing. Some of them are not employed, and we discovered that many girls, especially the girl and the women, they are being exploited. Some are recruited to be selling in bars, some are in nightclubs, some are doing very odd jobs to survive. It means that there's no protective mechanism for these children back home. So that's why we discovered that many of these children, some of them are even child soldiers, and since parents actually they don't know what to even do with their children, they just send them out to big towns to go and maybe they're doing house help, being babysitters and the rest. And this has actually exposed the number of our youths out there. If you go to big plantations in those areas, you will find that mostly people that are working there, the youths that are working there, they are from Bui and Donga Mantum division, from the diocese of Kumbu, as we say. But if you look at their working conditions, how much they are being paid, you see that it is actually increasing. And this increase is due to the ongoing crisis. And you know that the ongoing crisis too has come to impact negatively on the economy. The economy is not doing well. There are no job opportunities for the youths. And many of them are not going to school, so they are very vulnerable. And we know that poverty weakens resistance.
Right. I'll come back to you, Lukong, just to find out from you what your diocese is then doing to try and help these children, also what the government of Cameroon is doing. But Killian, you are our reporter and you've been obviously investigating and reporting about trafficking in persons in Cameroon, also interviewing some of the victims. Can you just tell us about that? How's been the experience for you and the challenges you've been facing, especially talking to some of these victims?
Yeah, it's always very, very difficult to listen to some of the testimonies that they give. I've talked to especially girls and women who've been raped, they've been tortured. I interviewed one lady who was trafficked to Kuwait, and she came back with a story that she used to actually clean snakes, because snakes in some parts of the Middle East are actually considered as pets. And she was in charge of cleaning snakes, those kinds of things. And then she was subjected to sexual violence by her employers. So the stories are always very much heart-wrenching. And the moment you step your foot in Kuwait or any of those Middle Eastern countries, the first thing is that they confiscate your passport so that you can't even leave. And then you are basically locked up in the house in which you are working, and you work from dawn to dusk with no rest, little food, no access to healthcare, nothing really. So the stories are really, really heart-wrenching. And sometimes you begin to wonder what is actually driving many of these children to go in search of those greener pastures. I remember I did a story when I was calling for the state broadcaster CRTV. That was in 2016. I did a story on human trafficking that sparked national reaction. And we actually got many parents coming to thank us for saving their own children, because there was one particular man who came and said he was planning to send his child to Dubai on the promise that, well, he's going to get a better job. There was no job description, actually. So you find all of these things where mostly women are tricked into traveling with the promises of better paying jobs, only to end up as house helps. And they are abused, they are tortured. So these are some of the stories that they're telling me.
These are very sad stories just hearing this from you, Killian, and you're explaining how, especially young girls, that's really a concern. Just me thinking as a woman what they could be going through, and also the fact that there's the inflation, so much poverty, high poverty, level of poverty in Cameroon, how then these girls can survive. Some of them, I don't know, when you talk to them, do they feel like this is better than just staying at home? Since also Lukong even mentioned that they're not going to school, most of them, there is no food at home. They are also even taken by relatives, not just strangers. So do you also sense that from them, that at times they feel like this is better than just staying at home?
A couple of things there. There is this high levels of frustration you just mentioned, that pushing them to seek greener pasture. But there is also misinformation. Many of them don't really know what awaits them across the borders. But very recently, during the Yaoundé workshop, I spoke to one of the survivors who came back from Kuwait. She had very terrible stories to tell, but she has overcome the trauma. What she's doing now, she's actually gone into farm work. She has opened a 25-acre plantation, and she's encouraging. She's actually a leading voice, a leading campaigner now against human trafficking. She's telling her fellow girls, her fellow women, that out of the country is not always green as people want to put it. So there is a lot of.
But do they listen? Do they listen? There's this mentality that, oh, you were there, you just don't want us to also go and make money, or do they listen? That's the problem. Because I'm also in Europe. When someone will write to you that, oh, I really want to leave Africa, I want to come to Europe, the next thing, if you say, my sister or my brother, it's not easy out here, it's more like you just don't want to help. So do they really listen?
You are perfectly right. Many do not listen. And when I talked to you about the story we broadcast in 2016 that created a lot of national attention, there were still so many people who, within that period, even after our warning, I have a friend who actually listening to those testimonies from returnees, still decided to embark on that perilous journey. And in fact, that my friend has come back, we had to contribute money for him to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So people hardly listen, you're right. And it's a real concern. And that's why I think the media was included in the Yaoundé workshop, so that the media can continue to drum up, this sensitization, telling people that it's not always rosy out there. You need to really have something concrete that you are going to do before you jump on a flight to the Middle East or to any other country.
Yeah, right. Then what do you, or maybe what role do you believe the media can play, Killian, in combating human trafficking? And obviously we are journalists. How can we then collaborate with other stakeholders to just make sure that we address this issue effectively? Because we are losing brothers, sisters, children, mothers to this human trafficking. What role then do you think we can play as the media?
And I believe that this program is already playing that role. We need to continue raising awareness and shedding light on this issue that often operates in the shadows. In doing so, we as media can ensure that there is accountability, that those who engage in trafficking our girls, our children abroad or within the country, that they are held accountable. And of course, that in doing so, we're also empowering the survivors, because part of the problem, like Lukong rightly pointed out, there are many cases that go unreported because the victims hardly come forward. I think through the media, they can begin to come forward and address this issue. And then when you have this kind of national and international conversations going on, probably we might be making some progress. But we must also warn that this is an industry that is worth about $150 billion. There are very high-profile personalities involved.
People are making money, yeah. Whenever there's money and it's high-profile, it's so hard, right?
Yeah, it's extremely.
And Lukong, like I mentioned earlier, just to find out from you what then the diocese is trying to do to try and combat this issue, this crisis in Cameroon and also in your region. And have you tried to engage the government to try and see what can be done about this, despite the fact that, of course, both of you have confirmed that there are high-profile people involved in this syndicate?
At the level of the diocese, a lot is being done. And, this human trafficking is trampling on the dignity of a human person. And when it comes to a human person, it is a duty of the church to do that. And the Bishop of Kumbo has been very, very engaged and supportive in the process. If we can take from what happened to victims that we were able to retrieve from Kuwait, the role that the church in Kumbo diocese played, because I vividly remember that a lot of money was raised, that about 14 victims were retrieved from Kuwait. And that was thanks to the intervention of the bishop. He has also written pastoral letters calling the attention of the Christians to this horrible crime against humanity. And one of the issues that the diocese is trying now to do, or the Justice and Peace Commission is trying to do, is not just to limit our interventions at the level of creating awareness in communities. We're also trying to see how we can identify very strategic partners who could be of help, because we think that the trafficking network is a well-organized network. And if we have to fight, it should be a collective effort. We need synergy of action. And that's why we have not limited our approach only to talking to journalists, to talking to other NGOs that are fighting against human trafficking. We are doing everything to engage the state, to engage the government, or to seek ways how the government can intervene for this fight to be very effective. And I remember that concretely, we have held a series of meetings with top government officials. I remember in 2015, when this Kuwait saga started, we had to meet with the Delegate General for National Security, and we explained to him that that was what was happening in Cameroon and that many of our girls were in Kuwait. I remember he asked for the list if we were sure of what we were saying. We presented a list, and after that list, a lot of arrests were made. And we have not ended at that. At the level of the ministries, we are trying to work with the Department of Human Rights, International Cooperation at the Ministry of Justice for us to see how we can push forward for the law, the 2011 law on the fight against human trafficking to be amended so that it should conform to international norms. And I think that is yielding fruits. And one of the outcome was the last workshop we held in Yaoundé some few days ago. We are also trying to work with journalists. We are also trying to work with lawyers. And we organize a workshop in Yaoundé with lawyers and judges and then the journalists too, because we feel that it is a collective action and we need to network. We need a synergy of action so that proper attention can be given to this issue. We are looking forward to organizing one with transporters because trafficking has to do with transporting people from one location to the other. And there's no way we can successfully fight human trafficking if transporters are not engaged in the process. So we are looking forward to organizing a workshop also with lawyers to let them understand that they play a very big role in enhancing, or they can also play a very big role in fighting against this human trafficking. So we also think that it is necessary for the laws to be implemented, and that's why we had to meet with some parliamentarians of the ruling party and those of the opposition in our nation to try to talk to them to see the importance of this issue of fighting against human trafficking. And we are happy that many of them, they were very happy to collaborate. One of the major things that the diocese is doing as we are speaking is that we discovered that when these victims, especially those who retried from Kuwait, when they came back, we had a challenge of where to keep them, because these victims, they come back traumatized, they come back depressed, and we cannot just send them back to their homes because they need psychosocial support, they need counselors. So we had that challenge of where to keep them. And the Diocese of Kumbu is, at this moment, we're trying to put up a rehabilitation center. Victims of other human rights violations can receive psychosocial support. And then we are also opening up to skills enhancement programs that we can help them to integrate.
Right. And thank you so much for the background, Atmo, just reminding us that you are in Africa. There, the chickens, I can hear some chickens crowing in the background. Killian, as we also wrap up and your parting words, what has been the response of the state? And do you have the feeling that victims and survivors generally get justice when it comes to Cameroon?
Yes, when we are talking about the response of the state, I think we are basically talking about prosecution. And in the last, I think, 10 years or so, only 60 cases made it to the courts. 60 cases. And that doesn't even reflect the scale of the problem. And part of the reason why many cases are not prosecuted is because, first of all, the victims don't come forward, especially those who have suffered sexual violence, because none of the cases that were litigated in court had to do with sexual violence. And the reason is there is this stigma that goes around when you are sexually abused. Generally, you go into hiding. You don't want people to know about it. So there is the problem of the victims coming forward. But there are also a lot of legal problems. So the cost of legal prosecution, all of those things, keeps many of the victims from going to court.
Many thanks to our guests for the day, Lukong Isido Njonyu, Deputy Coordinator of the Derson Justice and Peace Commission, and DW's correspondent, Killian Hangala.
Africa is changing. Don't get left behind. Tune in to Africa Link.
At the Africa Link podcast, we always look across the continent to see how the stories and issues we are dealing with play out, or at times even overlap. According to estimates by the human rights organization Anti-Slavery, nearly 50 million people are trapped in modern-day slavery. Out of that number, 1 in every 4 people is a child. Very unfortunate. Now, according to the International Labour Organization, human trafficking generates 150 billion in profits annually. Elvis Ajete Soa, a migration researcher at the University of Ghana, says the driving factor Behind this growth in human trafficking in Africa is the complex political and social situation of the people in various African countries. That's it for this edition of Africa Link. Remember, you are not just a listener, but a crucial part of our community, and your engagement can shape the direction of our discussions. We value your insights and encourage you to share your thoughts with us. Together, we can make a difference in the fight against human trafficking. Remember, you can also find all of the Africa Link podcast episodes on Spotify and Apple. This podcast was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabi. My name is Josie Mahachi. Thanks for listening. Until the next one, it's bye for now.